Hey, in this video we're going to talk about the question, is heavy weapons better than martial arts?
Oh my gosh, there he is.
We're going to look through the strengths and weaknesses of both, find out which is easier to train, compare the stats, and finally find out the answer. First up, we're going to look at martial arts. Stabbing people has only been around for what, 5,000 years, but punching people, and that's been happening since we were Sahelanthropus You're going to want to put some thought into who is becoming your martial artist. Although you can use skeletons or a shek, hivers like Beep and especially Scorchlanders have some great buffs for martial arts training, and that will speed up the process a ton. When you first start out in Kenshi, you're not very rich. Buying almost anything is difficult, and a good sword can cost an arm or a leg, literally. Martial arts though, you've already got your weapon, fists. What you could do to improve your baby MA is by giving them some just rags, even a shoddy pair of ninja rags that cost less than 1,000. They'll drastically increase your stats, but if you really can't find anything, just plain nothing will do. All man's training for martial arts can be done pretty quickly in vain, using the hiver town to capture a gorilla, putting it in a bed and punching it for days on end. This will easily get you to the 70s of martial arts, but it's not the best training method. Punching gorillas all day won't train your dodge, your dexterity, or your strength, so we're gonna have to do something else. By the way, remember to save strength training for later. Trust me, it's gonna make training for everything else so much easier while you have low strength. Later on in the playthrough, when you have your own outpost, you can build a small training area. Using multiple camp beds and enemies like beak things, you can train martial arts at record speeds, going up into the 90s. But with these new training grounds, you can also use a controlled enemy to train dodge and use a katana to train dexterity, as it speeds up your dodging speed. The last thing for martial arts training is strength. By just carrying rocks like iron or maybe copper around, you can get more damage for your martial arts. You don't need a fancy training area, so you can do this any time in your playthrough, although I would recommend doing it after you've done all the other training. Once you've done all of this, you're probably in a position to get some better gear. The best martial artists will have some assassin's rags for dodge and dexterity, and maybe some GI pants for that little buff to martial arts. Shoes and hats don't matter unless it's something heavy that has all these debuffs. If you're just using something like drifter's shoes or maybe nothing, it won't do anything bad, and it also won't do anything good. Now with the best equipment, the best training and the best character for the job, you can now take down the biggest of the big. A level 80 martial artist combined with high dodge and dexterity will tear through any of the usual enemies, and they'll still punch holes through people like the Bugmaster. Catlon is possible, but it's a bit of a stretch. They'll get hit every now and again by Catlon, and their lack of armor will eventually get them downed. Large groups of tough enemies like adult beak things or fishmen could also down your martial artist, as the group will get hits in every once in a while and the lack of armor does nothing to stop the damage. Of course, the best character for heavy weapons is the opposite of martial arts. Sheks and skeletons both have training buffs for heavy weapons, like a Shek's buff for strength and a skeleton's buff for heavy weapons itself. Out of the two, I'd say the best character for this is not the Shek, it's the skeleton. Sheks have a lot of debuffs, including a dexterity one, but they're still a viable option if you really want to. But skeletons, they have no debuffs that affect heavy weapons, and they only have the buff for heavy weapons. Now when you're starting out with heavy weapons, it's difficult. Every single heavy weapon will be at least 20 kilograms, and with a strength in single digits, you're not going to do well. Heavy weapons do not come cheap. If you plan on buying your first one, you'll be set back a few grand, unless it's really shitty. You could try stealing one if you've got a thief on hand. A place like Katun has a big selection, most of the time including a heavy weapon. And unlike the scrap house, it's not hard to steal from if you know how. Heavy armor goes very well with a heavy weapon, but it's not needed. At this stage, most heavy weapon you'll find is god awful, and a shoddy piece of samurai armor won't protect anyone, so just use what you can. Training without a training area is pretty difficult for heavy weapons. You could do the gorilla thing again, but one gorilla won't get you very far with the higher damage of these weapons. I just let my heavy guy passively train until I got an outpost. When you finally get a training area, your heavy will skyrocket in skill, still using the same techniques as martial arts training of course. I would say train defense up first, as without a high attack or damage, defense training will be much easier. All of this will get you into the 80s for both defense and attack, and then combining this with some good quality heavy armor like samurai armor or whatnot, you'll get a character who can fight Catlon. Well, fight Catlon for at least a while until Catlon downs them. Heavy weapon users are suited for fighting large groups of enemies. My heavy has taken down nests of beak things in seconds. Now I'm not saying that he's incapable of killing solo bosses or other enemies. You might have even seen Old Soldier, my heavy weapons guy, kill this wizard in a single hit. Now let's compare the two. As I said, heavy weapons is better at taking down groups, while martial arts is better at taking down solo enemies. Heavy weapons is also more expensive to buy the armor and weapon rather than rags you would want for martial arts. But I would say that heavy weapons is safer if you're worried about getting down, as the armor you can wear while using heavy weapons can absorb as much as half of the damage you get, compared to the nothing that the assassin's rags absorbs. But again, assassin's rags and other light armor that you would wear as a martial artist will let you run a lot faster, so you could use it to run away from fights you don't want. For the final answer, is heavy weapons better or is martial arts better? In the end, both are. I'm joking. It would be annoying if you watch until now for an answer and I just say some shit like, both are very good. I have no opinion at all. In my real opinion, martial arts are better. Just remember that Kenshi has a variety of characters, weapons and armor for a reason. And well, bye.
Please, Hypnotoad! It's beyond my control! No! Don't make me kill myself!